Welcome to episode 9 of the Behind the Beacon podcast. I'm your host, Seth Orensky. Before our first interview, I want to remind all of our student athletes that the final round of True Beacon seminars are next week. The True Beacon seminars will be hosted at 7 p.m. each night, beginning on Monday, November 16th with the junior class. Also keep in mind a couple of key dates on the academic calendar. There will be no classes on Wednesday, November 11th for Veterans Day, and Thursday and Friday, November 26th and 27th for Thanksgiving break. Our first guest this week is men's hockey alum Albee Daley. Albee was the captain of the 2016 men's hockey team that made the program's first ever trip to the Division III Frozen Four. On top of his athletic success, Albee also was the first and only player in program history to be named an academic all-district honoree. Since graduating, Albee has teamed up with former men's hockey director of operations Liam Cavanagh to found Never Give Up Radio, an organization focused on ending the stigma that surrounds mental health. I spoke to Albee about how he was able to overcome a difficult moment in his own life, his advice for current student athletes struggling with their mental health, and his track of study in medical school. I'm joined by UMass Boston men's hockey alum Albee Daley. Albee, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Seth. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing really well as well. Albee, I want to start with a huge injury that kind of shifted your life trajectory a little bit. You're 18 years old, you're playing juniors, you're a pretty good recruit at this point, looked at by a lot of Division I schools, and you suffer a really bad knee injury that changed your life in more ways than one. Can you kind of talk about that injury and how it affected your mind and kind of maybe even your career track going forward?
I was 18, and at the time, I just graduated high school after growing up in the Albany, New York area, and I'd left to go play juniors, and had high hopes. Had thought that I'd been in contact with a few Division I schools that had said they're going to keep an eye on me, and I think it was after my fourth game in juniors, third or fourth game in a practice, I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus. So obviously that's an injury that requires a pretty serious surgery. It's an 8 to 12 month recovery. So during that time, I went through a pretty low point in my own life. As a kid, I really didn't have many things that didn't go my way. And that was really the first adversity I was ever forced to face. And when you're faced with that at 18 years old and you're living by yourself and you're away from home, it puts a lot of strain on you, not only physically with the injury, but mentally. And, for me, it was really just about learning how to attack the process of rehabilitation. And as I got further into my rehabilitation at that time, I realized that there's a lot more, to recovery from an injury, from something traumatic, from anything traumatic, than just the physical. The mental is just as, if not more important. So that kind of led me to get more interested in the role of mental health and, mental well-being probably is a better term for just general health, and not only recovery, but for general well-being and health as an individual. So, it taught me a lot, and it was definitely a difficult time in my life, but, I think I'm a better person for it.
You talk about mental well-being. At that point, you're an Albany native, Union's looking at you, really strong program, and then they start not to look at you. And then some of the other Division I schools start not to look at you. And also, anyone who's had any kind of knee surgery knows it's a really slow process, and there's bumps and stops along the way. What was that like, and looking back now, how does that help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, at least now when I look back at that time, like you said, I had always wanted to play at Union College. It was a great school. It was near my hometown. I had a grandmother at the time who she was diagnosed with ALS, and I'd always wanted her to see me play in college. So that was something that was really near and dear to my heart. Was, all right, I'm going to go to Union, and Nana will be able to see me play. And I just stopped hearing from them. They had a coaching change around that time, and that's nothing against Union. I still love Union. It's a great place. I still go to games when I go home. But, the thing that really struck at that time was you stopped hearing from all these schools, and you wonder if you're ever going to play again. And, then I think it was about 5 months or 6 months into my recovery that progress just started getting so much smaller. And, I wasn't making those drastic jumps. I had a little bit of soreness every day. I still felt a little bit weak every day. And I wasn't seeing, what I thought. I said, it's 6 months, right? I should be skating. I should be sprinting. I should be squatting. I should be doing everything I need to do to get back to where I was, if not better, and prove to these schools that, I'm still worth their time. But, and it just taught me, like, you get to a certain point and it doesn't matter if it's any type of recovery where, really significant change is really hard to achieve. So that's when it occurred to me that this is where my mental health is going to have to come in. I'm going to have to educate myself on how to be mentally strong every single day. When I go for a pool workout, if my hamstring cramps up, I need to take a break and I need to just go back at it and try again. And if there's a small setback, I need to learn from that setback. And as I look back at that now, where I am, as a medical student, every step is very tiny. You learn one thing, you feel, oh my God, that's so interesting, but there's millions of things left to learn. So it helps me to this day on just learning to be mentally strong. There's going to be setbacks and there's going to be things that you can't control. And that injury really taught me how to manage those things. And obviously with my work with Never Give Up and Liam Cavanagh, I have tried to use that experience to help others. And I think it's really important to realize that there's just so much more to mental well-being, than what is seen on the exterior, right? You don't always know what's going on with someone. So, it's been a really important progression throughout my life, and it's something I hold very near and dear to my heart.
I like the fact that you brought up, sometimes you can't see it. Albee, a lot of people thought of you as kind of a golden boy at UMass Boston. You were a workout warrior. You were an academic all-district. You were a captain as a junior. And you were a really good hockey player while being pre-med. But we talked about it before this interview. There's a lot more going on. Can you kind of talk about the recognition of figuring out how to balance your mental health and also recognizing that, hey, I'm struggling with this and I'm able to do some of these things. How do you find a way to help other student athletes?
It's a loaded question in a way because there's just so much to it. But yeah, I think you pointing out my time at UMass is a perfect example. It came down to there was so much excitement in my life when I was there. Every day felt like something new happened. It was either something academic that was really exciting for me, maybe a professional advancement, something happened with the hockey team, which occurred a lot. I was very lucky for that. Something happened with our athletics organization in general. Just seemed like there was always something going on. And, I kept finding myself in the middle of really kind of exciting things when I was at UMass Boston. And I loved it and I had a great experience. But I think what a lot of people didn't see was I would go home every night and, I spent really 6 to 8 hours a night studying, and I woke up really early to try and get my work done because I really wanted to do what I am doing now. And that is really challenging from a mental perspective. So to be honest with you, what I think helped me the most and kept me afloat at times was using my experiences and taking my times when I felt really stressed to help others, to sit on committees like SAC and get involved with our student athletes and figure out ways to help our student athletes and help each other. Obviously, in my time at UMass, I met Liam and we kind of connected, and I was at a really stressful point in my life, but also a really exciting point. He was at kind of a lower point in his life when we first really got close. And I think that helped me a lot because I was talking to him about his challenges and realizing I had my own. And, I think that's the one big misconception of mental health is just because people don't always talk about it or it's not there on their face, doesn't mean it's not there. And that was the case with me. Just because I wasn't clinically depressed or, I wasn't slouching my shoulders every day didn't mean that I didn't have my own mental health issues. I struggled a lot and I think I really do. I think looking back at it, helping others and getting involved as I did when I was at UMass, it really, made the experience that much more bearable for me at times because I really didn't have time to sit and be by myself. I always felt like I was busy, and I felt like I was supported so well by the community and everyone there. And to this day, I feel that way. I mean, I still talk to people from there. So I think that was it for me.
You mentioned Liam Cavanagh, the former hockey ops director for the men's hockey team, and Never Give Up Radio. I want to talk Never Give Up Radio, such a great group that you guys have created where the focus was on destigmatizing mental health issues, especially in athletics. Now more than ever, mental health is a huge concern for both athletes and coaches because, I mean, it's not there. You don't have athletics, you don't have practices, you don't have games. What are some of the things that you and Liam have talked about, or that you've been kind of trying to spread to others about how to get through this time? Because for most athletes, there's never been a time in their life where they haven't been able to compete for this long or work out and be with their teammates, which are a huge part of their lives.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, especially in the beginning of the pandemic. We actually met with a conference out in the Midwest. It was probably 8 or 10 different teams and coaches, and the director of that organization. And we met with them last summer, the start of the summer, and we just talked about, how difficult this time is for athletes and how we understood that. We talked about some of the things that we suggested doing, and obviously at that time it was a little different because we were only, I think, about 2 to 3 months into the pandemic. So they were still thinking they were going to return to school in the fall. But, one thing Liam and I have talked about now is, I think as an athlete, you have to kind of look at the big picture during this time. And that can really help you stay guarded and stay grounded. And it's difficult, right? Because I can only imagine if I was a junior at UMass right now, or a senior at UMass, or even a freshman, it doesn't matter the year even, I would be distraught because I would be wondering, when am I going to play again? Am I going to get the time back? But I think if you take a step back and you look at the big picture, I mean, at least I see it from my shoes now. You look and you see that there's people who have lost their job. They have no opportunity to make an income. There's people out there with certain health conditions who, if they get this virus, they won't be able to survive it. There's families that have been, had their loved ones taken away from a virus that they had no way of controlling. And if you take a step back and you look at the bigger situation and you understand that in the grand scheme of things, being an athlete does not define you. And that was something I always talked about when I was at UMass, and Liam and I talk about with Never Give Up to this day, is you are not defined by the fact that you're an athlete. Being an athlete is something that makes you who you are, but it does not define you as a person. And I think a lot of times athletes want to think that the only thing in their life is athletics. And I think sometimes that's to our disadvantage to do that, because there's a lot more out there, and there's a lot more you can do. And if competing is something that you're missing out on, there's ways to compete. You can always put in things to compete throughout the day. You can continue to train. You can try and get that much better during this time if you have a way of training. And then there's ways of just general stress control too, that Liam and I have discussed with a few different athletes who have reached out to us about, journaling throughout this period. That's something I think is huge. Kind of think about how cool it would be if you keep a journal throughout this whole process. Every time you're feeling anxious about what's going on, not knowing about what your future holds as an athlete, you journal about it. And then when you do get the chance to go back and compete, you can look back at that and be like, wow, I made it through that. Now I'm going to really enjoy my time as an athlete. So that's something we've expressed to athletes, and we have some stuff that hopefully is going to be coming up within the next few months. Based on Liam and myself's schedule, it's been a little bit difficult to keep up with things as much as we would have liked to. But I think in the months coming, we're going to try and put out some webinars and things like that to be able to give some advice to athletes and talk about methods for trying to get through these difficult times.
You talked about your busy schedule. You're in your second year of med school, and you're studying osteopathic medicine. For those people who don't know, can you just give a brief definition of what osteopathic medicine is and why it really was something that you were drawn to?
Sure. So biggest thing right at the top is you have your MD and you have your DO. Both are complete board certified physicians in the United States. They can do exactly the same things. They can perform surgery. They can diagnose, treat, prescribe, you name it. So in terms of those two, the biggest difference is just the name, MD versus DO. The only difference with DOs versus MDs is we require for our education increased amount of training in both the musculoskeletal system and our palpatory skills. So we use our hands for as much as we can as osteopathic physicians. Another osteopathic philosophy is just kind of looking at the complete person, right? So someone comes into your office and they have hypertension, not just quickly jumping to, all right, we're going to give them an ACE inhibitor, right? We're going to look at the whole picture and what's going on with their gastrointestinal system. What do they eat? Diet? What's in their diet? Do they exercise? How is their stress level? Do they find time to manage stress? And when I was going on my interviews for medical school, I interviewed all across the country in both MD and DO programs, and the osteopathic philosophy really stuck out to me, especially in my education at UMass was exercise and health sciences. So, a lot of the philosophies from osteopathic medicine are intimately related to lifestyle factors, and being able to utilize lifestyle factors to control one's health. So that really drew me to the field. And after 2 years of being in it, I will say it's a very fitting for me. And I've been able to study some things that I never thought I'd be able to study, but it's a really interesting field, and I think it'll fit me well.
Well, Albee, it's been great to see some of the ways that you've been able to contribute both to UMass Boston Athletics and other athletic departments since graduation, and really exciting seeing some of the things you're doing right now. It was great catching up with you.
Yeah, Seth, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was my interview with Albee Daley. You can check out Never Give Up Radio online at nguradio.org or on Facebook and Instagram at NGU Radio. Before we get to our next interview, I'd like to dig a little deeper on one of the On This Date posts from this past week. On October 8th, 2014, UMass Boston men's soccer defeated Keene State College 2-1 in double overtime to win the program's first ever Little East Conference tournament title. The matchup pitted a Beacons team playing in their first ever LEC finals against an Owl side that had won a conference record 6 LEC titles and a record 9 appearances. Keene State stunned the Beacons by scoring the opening goal just 11 minutes into the contest. Senior captain Douglas Silvera responded with a tremendous individual effort at the 23:31 mark to tie the game at 1-1. The game would stay tied for over 80 minutes before Edmilson Barrows headed home Silvera's corner kick with just 2:06 remaining in double overtime. Silvera, who is one of only 3 holdovers on the team from the Miles Berry era, was named the most outstanding player of the tournament. The win not only sent the Beacons to their first ever NCAA tournament, but marked the final contest played on the Clark Athletic Field that was situated right next to the Clark Building. Now let's turn to our second guest. Women's hockey alum Molly Norton is a hockey pioneer. She helped establish and played on the first ever varsity hockey team at Milton High School and UMass Boston, before taking over as the first ever coach for Bentley University's club women's hockey team in 2018. Outside of the hockey world, Molly works as a special education kindergarten teacher. Molly and I discussed her experiences as a founding member of the UMass Boston club and varsity women's hockey team, and the challenges of remote teaching in the midst of a pandemic. I'm joined by UMass Boston women's hockey alum Molly Norton. Molly, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Molly, you are a hockey pioneer, and you've started several programs, but I want to start with your high school program at Milton High School. What was that experience like, starting with the boys and then starting a girls' high school program literally from scratch?
It was definitely an experience. So I played 2 years with the boys. Pretty much I played with the boys my whole time leading up to high school. And the girls' team started my junior year. It was a lot of fun. There were no expectations. So just to show up, I don't know if we really won a lot of games that year. I don't remember. But it was more just teaching the girls in the locker room how to get dressed, teaching the goalie how to put the pads on, and teaching a lot of them how to skate. But it was definitely a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs, and it's amazing to see where the program is today. It's grown so much.
You graduated Milton High School, looked at a couple schools, ended up at Curry where you didn't play hockey, and then decided to go to UMass Boston. What was that conversation, that idea, like, especially knowing that UMass Boston was just beginning to form a club team of their own?
When I was senior in high school, I was looking at different schools to play at. Salve and University of Southern Maine were pretty much my top two. And then when it came down to it, I was like, I don't know. I don't want to go away. I'm going to go to Curry for a year and figure everything out. I went to Curry for a year and I didn't play hockey. That was the first year ever that I never played hockey. And it was probably, I realized that I was missing the game so much, so passionate about it. So I was missing that in my life. So then a friend of mine, Katie Fassard, who was also played at UMass, we went to high school together, and she was on the high school team with me. She said, hey, you know that UMass is starting a women's club team? And I said, really? She's like, yeah, you should probably go check it out. So I did.
What was that experience like? What was your kind of that first interaction with Coach Schuler?
So I reached out and I had said that I was, inquiring about the team, and just wondering like how to get information and, what the next steps would be. And she said, hey, why don't you come down and play pickup? So like within a couple of days, I went down to UMass and I walked in the rink, and I'm like, all right, is this really what she wants me to do? This is my tryout. It was a game of pickup, and it was all guys. The only women were me and her. And I was like, this can't be right. This can't be what she wants me to do right now. There's no way this is my tryout. So I get dressed. I get on the ice, and I'm like, I can't blow this. This is my tryout. Like, I have to suck it up. Like, completely intimidated. There were men from the men's team, and I'm playing with, she's an Olympian. So I'm like, this is great. Like, I don't have a shot in hell at this. So then, about 20 minutes into it, I collide with one of the guys, complete accident, but all of a sudden I get my bells rung. I'm like seeing stars. I'm like, oh God, I just blew that tryout. So, I get up, I suck it up. What am I going to do? I can't lay there and cry because I'd never make the team. So I suck it up and I get to the bench and, have a sip of water, and then I finish the pickup game. And then afterwards, she told me, great, you made the team. So, I didn't blow that.
What was that club team like? It was a 1-year club team, and then varsity started the next year. What was that group like? What was that season like as the program transitioned from club to varsity?
Playing women's club hockey in college was an honor for me. And the first year was probably the most memorable. A lot of fun, a lot of jokes, very similar to my first year at Starton Milton High. We had 10 skaters and, 10 players on the team. And if sometimes we play games with 7 or 8 people. So you could not change. You couldn't change up until you played a shift of forward and defense. And if you tried to come to the bench early, Schuler would not let you change. So we all joked about that. I was probably in the best shape of my life that year because all I did was skate. But it's an amazing honor to be part of the first year at UMass Boston. To see how far the program has come in 17 years is truly amazing. Seeing them beat teams that we didn't even have a leg to stand on playing them. It would be like 14-0. I don't know. They stopped putting scores up on the clock. I felt like, I was playing youth hockey, and now seeing the program, beating these teams and competing in the playoffs it's so awesome to watch. I follow them all the time. I don't always make it to the games, but I follow it. And then just being able to play for Schuler is amazing. She definitely was one of the best coaches I have ever had. She taught me so much about the game, and I continue to use those skills today that she's taught me.
There was only a very small group of players who went from the club to the varsity team. What was that like? And then why was the team able to click as quickly as it was and to have as much success as the program had, especially in those first couple of years?
Family was definitely a huge part of our program at UMass. Like you said, from going from club to varsity, there weren't many of us. There were like 2 to 3 of us that went from joining the varsity team. And Schuler recruited a bunch of people, a bunch of girls, and a lot of them were from the city. They were like local. And they kind of like, we all just gelled together. We were all kind of like the same. You know, a lot of us had to pay for school ourselves. We had to get a job. So we could all relate to each other. And Schuler still to this day says that like coaching us, like we all wanted to be there. Like, yes, we had to balance work, school, and playing, but we were able to do it because we wanted to be there and we wanted to play together. When I say family, I'm still close and consider many of them my best friends still today. Melissa Belmonte and I are best friends, and we still keep in touch with many of the girls on the team. And it's just like you build those bonds. Hockey's a long season. So you spend a lot of time and, you know, in the locker room, joking around, traveling together. So you spend a lot of time together. And so, yeah, family is definitely one of the unique qualities of our first year as a varsity program.
I want to forward 12 years from your last game to 2018 when Bentley decided to create a club team of their own, a Division I men's program, but no women's team. What went into deciding to become the first ever coach of that program and continuing in this line of being there at the beginning of women's hockey programs?
You know, in the summer, I'd play the old lady hockey league. And one of the ladies had reached out to me and said, hey, they're starting a club team at Bentley. You should look into it. So, you know, the first thing I did was call Schuler and be like, hey, what do I do? What should I do? And she said, do it. You know, if it's not something, you know, you want to do, at least you said you tried it, you know, and you can experience it for your own and what it's going to be. And so, you know, I applied, and part of my interview, because the girls were at home, so they were at all different places and stuff. We did it over the phone, and it was just kind of like, you know, it was a different interview. And but at the end of the day, it was like they were like, yeah, we want you as a coach. Yeah, you seem to just like, you know, you have a good personality, and you don't let things bother you. And it's just like, it's club, so we want to have fun, but we also want to compete. So that was one of the things why they had hired me for that, which is true. Like, at the end of the day, hockey should be a place where you want to go to have fun, and it shouldn't be like, you know, becoming a chore that you have to do. And so, yeah, that was amazing. And a lot of similarities to the first year at UMass Boston. We didn't have a lot of people. There were about 10, 12 of us, and one goalie. So we just prayed every day that the goalie never got hurt, because if not, we'd have to dress someone else to go in net. And just being able to play in that brand new arena. And it was just like the girls, they were awesome. They had that same commitment and passion, dedication that we had at UMass. So it made it fun. It was a lot of fun. And I'm like grateful for the 2 years that I had there.
The other big part of your story is that you're not only a coach, you've been doing a lot of clinics on the side, but you're also a teacher. And this has to be one of the most difficult times for any teacher, just not necessarily being in the classroom, but you work as a kindergarten teacher with a lot of autistic students. How has that been during the pandemic, where you're unable to kind of work with them in person, and where, I mean, I think we can all say that it's a little bit difficult to stay focused, at least as much as normal. And now you're working with young kids who would struggle to focus to begin with.
I say to the parents all the time, I'm like, we're learning together. We're in this together. We're like a team, you know, and our one common goal is your child. And it's true. It's like being on a hockey team, or being, you know what I mean? It's that same kind of connection you have to build with the families. You build that connection, you have that family relationship with the parents and as well as the students. And during this time, that's what they need. It's a scary time. We don't know what's happening. We can't control it. And a lot of families chose not to send their children in when we were remote and hybrid. We had the option to have students come in hybrid. My families are amazing. They really are. I had a meeting the other day, and a father said to us, I almost cried. He said, "Thank you so much for all that you do. And if my child had not had all the teachers and the staff at the Mattahunt School, he wouldn't be where he is today." And just starting to communicate and advocate and participate in lessons. It's been amazing to watch. Just seeing the growth in some of the students in 2 months, despite this very awkward learning experience. I have 2 masters, a master in special ed and a master in reading. And I have never been taught to teach this way. So it's definitely being flexible and creative all at the same time. You want to get them engaged, and then you can do academics, but you got to get their attention first. And just building that rapport with the parents. And just, like I said, letting them know we're in this together and that it's not going to be perfect. And there are going to be, a lot of trial and errors. There are going to be things that are successful. There are going to be things that are not successful. But just having that open relationship and communication with each other, we will help your child, achieve goals this year and be successful.
How important is it to set goals and maybe change those goals from what a normal year would look like at November 5th, November 6th versus what you might be not getting to until December or January during a year like this where things just aren't necessarily the same?
Nothing's the same. I've been teaching this is my 14th year, and I have so many like manipulatives and centers and everything like that they can do in person. Now I'm recreating all of that digitally. And it's extremely time consuming. It's challenging. So I feel like too, like a lot of the goals, like it's just right now, our goal is to build stamina to attend Zoom. And then once have that stamina to attend Zoom, we get into academics. We get, and we're doing academics, but reaching their individual goals, and we do a lot of breakout rooms where we can differentiate instruction to meet individual needs and goals. But yeah, it's tough. It's, it's just meeting them where they're at right now. There has been a regression with some students, and just meeting them where they're at and, helping them feel successful and, making it comfortable and a positive learning environment where they want to attend the Zooms and making it fun at the same time.
Well, Molly, it was so great hearing your story and hearing some of the awesome things that you've done both in the hockey world and now as a teacher. I really appreciate your time.
Yes, and thank you so much. Still to this day, I am truly grateful for my experience at UMass Boston, from the professors to the coaches to my teammates. It's one of the most cherished times of my years of my life. And like I said, that I have so many friends to this day from UMass.
That was my interview with women's hockey alum Molly Norton. Norton is still extremely active with the women's hockey program and is one of the organizers for the Beacon's annual Catherine Wall Pink the Rink game each year. That's all for episode 9 of the Behind the Beacon podcast. Make sure to tune in next week.